Well, we're getting close here. Alternator bracket made, power steering brackets made. Seems like when you get these aluminum intakes, these new brackets the brackets never seem to fit right. The ear on this one was sticking clear out back here past the thermostat housing. So I just cut the ear off, bolted my alternator on in the two spots that I had, and then put the ear where I wanted it, and then just clamped the two together through the ground bracket on the alternator bracket so the electric current didn't go through the motor. Fried that up, fits perfect. Belt's just straight as an arrow, so that came out pretty good. And this is my redneck power steering belt tensioner. I'm sure I'll take a little flack for it from a few people, but I tell you what, it don't look bad, and it's 100% effective. You dial that belt into whatever you want, another eighth turn, back it off a quarter. It's just, I'm liking that for as stupid simple as it is. There's no bearing in it to wear out like on a regular belt tensioner either, so I usually hook my temp gauge to the side of the block, but I wasn't sure how these headers were going to work out. Typically my small block Chevy headers always, kind of go back just a little bit and then down right away. These ones go all the way back and then down, which I had to have because I got the front drive shaft on this side, but it left me really close to the rag joint. That's probably going to be an issue. We'll see what happens there. I'm figuring it'll probably cook that rag joint. I might end up having to modify that tube and move it over a little bit. And then same thing on this side. I ended up pretty close to my heater core hose. I'll take an extra piece of hose and wrap it around the outside of that heater core hose so it don't bake it. And I just threw me together a little bracket and nailed it onto the fender. That'll keep those in position. Ended up making the TBI, the throttle linkage bracket. It wasn't wide enough. The bar wasn't long enough between the two holes to go onto the two holes in the intake. So I just welded it onto another bar that was long enough, drilled the holes where I needed them. Ended up having to cut the end off a little bit and tweak it, but it sits in there perfect now. The linkage rod will slip right in there, and when it's stroked all the way out, pulled all the way out, the pedal's all the way up, and it just goes onto the linkage. So I should have a full stroke of the gas pedal, which you always want. Need to check that too. But I'm down to dropping in this radiator and dropping in the distributor. We're pretty much there. Throw the oil and fluid and stuff in it. I was figuring I could use the red HEI coil wire, or red coil wire off this TBI to feed my HEI. Seen a couple other videos. That's exactly what some other people did. They were worried about hooking that white wire up too. There is no white wire. It's already diked off in there. That's because this is a standard transmission. Everybody was saying you had to take that white wire and hook it to a homemade throttle position sensor or something. Otherwise, your transmission wouldn't shift. So I got a manual transmission. That's not an issue. A couple other people were talking about a white and purple wire, running that to the tach side of the HEI to make the fuel pump work all the time. I don't want to do that. I'll find a different source of power for that. If I tag that into the tach side of the distributor, A, it can potentially backfeed into the HEI. I've had that problem before. B, it's not going to make the tach read right because it's going to be getting all these weird signals. So I'll find a different source for the fuel pump. But mechanical gauges are in, mechanical oil, mechanical water. Still got to hook up the illumination on it, but that's about it. And the reason I made these brackets and stuff is this has 4 batteries in it, this roll-off truck. I wanted to maintain this 150 amp alternator. And it kind of came out a little backwards from the old stuff. Usually this is on the inside of this and your bolt goes through the front. But it lined up dead nuts perfect if it was on the front. So I just ran the bolt through from the inside. Not a problem. And that way I can maintain that alternator. And I had to maintain this power steering pump because these are hydro boost brakes. So I got an extra port on that power steering pump. So that's what that was all about, making the brackets and stuff. I couldn't go with the stock stuff because I had to maintain this hydro boost brake system. So pretty close though, down to dropping in the radiator, hooking up them fuel lines, dropping in the distributor. Hopefully we'll be firing this thing up today. Got to get it out of here, man. I got people needing cans swapped and all kinds of welding stuff stacking up. I got to get it done and get out of here. So anyhow, That's my redneck belt tensioner. That's how everything kind of came out. Everything's looking good offhand. Next video should be of it running. Everybody be safe.